Hey Goose, welcome back to the channel. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, I think like 3 years since we were last had a podcast together.
It's thank you. This is it's probably long overdue because it's always really fun talking to you, especially what you do to the community, to young talent, young people, and all of this thing. I thought you did a tremendous job, doing really good job.
Thank you, thank you. That means a lot. So let's catch up on you. I mean, I don't even know, last 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year here's been a whirlwind. I mean, you announced you retired, so you left Wells Fargo. What was kind of that process of like, why did you retire? What were you thinking?
Yeah, it's I made a reflection of this. I came to the US 35 years ago, right? Did my graduate school, did my PhD while working at Ford Motor Company at that time. So I have been 30 plus years in corporate America. And and always in large corporation for me. Ford Motor Company is engine design guy, leading engine design. And then I moved to Bank of America. When I left Bank of America, I was the head of quantitative risk for Bank of America. And then I went across the pond. I went to UK as the director of analytics, enterprise analytics for Lloyd Banks, which is the largest commercial bank in UK. For 3 years and came back to Wells Fargo. So my Wells Fargo job is probably the longest tenure on the same job, 11 years on the MRM, which is tremendous experience. If you recall, it's from the inception of modern risk management to the maturity that we have today. And I always love quant, and I don't want to be anything else than quant or data science. So in the corporate world, I have the highest level, right, in Wells Fargo. It's nowhere else to go. I don't want to be chief risk officer. I don't want to do something that do a generalist because my love in this field. I think I shared with you a little bit about I did my PhD in machine learning. My PhD is about manifold learning. It's about autoencoder at that time. I remember if you search my name and NIPS 97, you can see in a spatial workshop in autoencoder with Jeff Hinton, with all the big name at that time, right? So it was something like that. Of course, when I share with you and when I graduated, finished your PhD in machine learning at that time, no job as a machine learning engineer.
Yeah.
No data science job at that time, Dimitri, if you remember.
Yes.
Either you're a statistician or you're economist or you none, right? And
Yeah.
I did my PhD in engineering, dabble into a lot of different area and all of those things and say, no job for me. So I have to design the real engine. I designed Ford engine, the V6 engine that they have. So and then things then moved to a few years later after I designed the last design that I have released in 2004. I moved to Bank of America. So I have done all of this in large corporate world. So all my life is large corporate world. My passion is I love technical stuff. Even I moved to very senior executive, right? I report to the chief risk officer in one of the biggest bank in the US, and he report to the CEO and to the board. So I cannot go up.
Yeah.
I cannot go up anywhere else. And I say, okay, I am done with all of this. I want to pursue my interests. I want to really do things that I really enjoy to do because in corporate world, especially in the last 20 years, I look at it as I am doing a lot of management entertainment, I call it. Yeah.
Yes.
I have to talk to the board, I have to talk to senior executive, do all this management entertainment. But my heart is really in technical side. As you can see, if you look, you Google me and my Google Scholar, you can see all my publications. So sometimes it's really funny when I say I'm not a professor, I'm not a researcher, I'm an executive senior executive in banking. Yet my its index is probably 32. It's like professor, it's just funny, but I always publish only things that really practical and useful. That's just my thing. And then a few years back, I say, okay, let's do something that really based on the experience that we have, okay, making really MRM and particularly model validation as a real science, right? As a real science, not just practical practice. So we do that. When we want to make it real science, then you also have to make tool that very useful for the public. So that's what my thinking. I want to pursue things because I have a luxury that I don't have to worry about financially anymore. Yeah, my kids all grown up. The younger one is finishing graduate school at Carnegie Mellon doing AI engineering. So he'll graduate at the end of the year and say, okay, I'm going to do this later. We'll retire later, or I just screw it. I'm going to retire. Let's figure out what I like to do. Because I have a lot of stuff that I like to do. I love math. I love algorithms. I love machine learning, of course. All algorithms and all this. I love writing code. So if you look at it, people at my level who still writing code, ask anybody in the industry, people at my level that still writing code. I do, okay? So, but maybe I don't know if there's anybody, okay? But I do because I love this thing. So yeah, it's really to pursue my things, making discipline of model validation, which we can talk about it more detail in terms of my philosophy, to be more accessible for everybody. So I'm working with a few partners right now. As you know, I work with H2O because they have good engineering team that, okay, how can we make this make sense out of this LLM? Okay, how to really test and validate this. We can talk about this more on this. I released PyML, Python Interpretable Machine Learning, 2.5 years ago, which now is downloaded more than 300,000 times and a lot of banks using it,
Yeah.
Educating people to do things right. I love machine learning because I feel like I have a second chance in my life. Remember, I did my PhD in this field and then die, right? Machine learning die. I have to do something else and then came back. I want to do this thing right. The area that concern regulator, let's attack it, make it really do this thing safely, confidently, remove all the hype. Let's talk about the fundamental and provide tools because, in this industry, some people are heavily, very technical, some probably less. But how can we make this one accessible to everybody? So people that highly technical will benefit, people that less technical will benefit as well. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So are you still maintaining PyML as part of that, working H2O AI? And then I heard rumors that you might also be teaching. Are you teaching at any university?
It's university here in Charlotte, University of North Carolina in Charlotte, right? It has School of Data Science. Charlotte is probably the second largest financial city after New York. And they have School of Data Science. And the executive director of School of Data Science is actually my classmate at MIT. Okay. So it's a good friend. And so, okay, let me help. I'm happy to help. So yes, and in particular, helping in the area of teaching model validation.
Okay.
So we have a curriculum that we started, a graduate class that we started 2 years ago. This fall is the third time we're offering this, basically. Teaching model validation is because model testing, identification of model weakness, and all those things are very fundamental. Even if you're a model developer, this one is so important, So we make that one, when I say make it into science, into teachable. So we teach fundamental stuff about model validation, particularly for machine learning. And this is my pet piece as well in the mindset of model validation. I probably will ruffle some feather. We can talk about this, okay? And because it traditionally came from statistical area, right? Where we have very fundamental hypothesis. What is the data generator? And then when we build model, we test the hypothesis to make sure that it doesn't violate the assumption on the data generator. Well, if you think about model race, let's say pick a test for normality. It has nothing to do with model race. Okay, model race is about how the model will be wrong. You
Yes.
test it for failure, understand the failure and deficiency so that you can fix it and you can manage it. Not about testing hypotheses, you know. So well, when we do it, machine learning, no such thing as hypothesis. Data driven, right? No hypothesis. So now you have no hypothesis testing anymore. How would you validate, right? So this is more acute in machine learning, but it really thinking about, hey, the focus of model validation is about model hacking. It's about this is influenced by my engineering design before. It's about we need to test it to failure before we put model is a product. Before we put product or model in the production, test it to failure. So you understand, test it for robustness because it's going to live in dirty data. Now, not the noise may change. Test it, is the output reliable? Test it and is model resilience because it's going to be distribution drift. Is the model going to fail? In what situation model going to fail? So focus more on that instead of hypothesis testing. So that's what I'm trying to make it really teachable, and that's part of the teaching, the training that the working with local university to do that. And also we try to do put the hype aside in terms when we talk about responsible AI. What does it mean, responsible AI? Yes, you have governance, but at the end of the day, did you validate the model?
How do you combat this? So I have been very, I guess I come off on YouTube too. I'm very anti-ML, anti-data science, not because the models or methods are wrong. I think they're great and we're using them internally. But
Yes.
there's this like community feeling of nobody cares about robustness. Nobody cares about testing. And I keep having people say, Dimitri, why don't you just keep refitting automatically as the models fail? And I've been in validation for so long. I'm like, I can pull out the code and I can say the model's going to fail here. And this is why, and the data is not stable. But I
Yeah.
always struggle to explain that, especially to like senior executives in management, because
Yeah.
they just dive down this rabbit hole of I have a hard time pulling out all the explanations and the details. I get into the math and then I lose everybody.
So I think the concept the concept of conceptual soundness and all those things is very, very important, right? So you have to be able to explain it in a very simple way, but at the same time, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to just talk about it. I am going to give you tool, right? That's what I released in PyML. I'm going to give you tool to show you in practice, real here. You can try it yourself. This is what you have. So you talk about robustness. This is a problem with machine learning. It's a huge problem and a uniquely machine learning because machine learning is overly parameterized model. You have a lot of parameters. So by nature, your model will be not robust. So testing for robustness is very important. This is the problem that I have people, and part of it because that's why I want to teaching in university, because the university will teach you machine learning, how you do it, how you evaluate it. Okay, I'm going to randomly split the data, training and testing. And then I'm going to test it with test data. When you randomly split, you come from the same distribution.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. This is the biggest fight I had at Santander. I've had at my current firm. The concept of out of time is mind blowing. I had a vendor recently tell me how great their model was, and they did that. They just randomly sampled the same pool twice. And you're not going to get the robustness.
I would say just try very simple thing. In PyML, we did very simple thing. Just inject a little bit noise in your input, the test data. Inject a little bit noise. See how your model will degrade rapidly with that. And see if your model better than linear model.
Yeah.
You fit XGBoost, deep XGBoost, and boost it forever. You're going to get a good one as long as your learning rate very small. You get a good model with your testing data from the same distribution. Try to inject noise a little bit. See how your model will crumble. Okay, so that's very, very simple robustness. And testing when your model is not robust like that, then people say, okay, what is the cure of that? Well, people say, oh, I'm going to use more data, including synthetic data. Well, okay. But at the end of the day, the theory tell you that if you don't regularize it, you don't control the complexity, you will end up with something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that is very, very important. I think the problem with machine learning, this is very acute, the community, because it's very powerful tool. You should use it. If you use it right, it's incredible. For example, you can fit anything, you get good result. If you don't have explainability, you don't check monotonicity, you don't look at that, you can get a really garbage model, even though high performance. So, and this is example. I help one graduate student that want to do this and do modeling, writing thesis for regulated industry. Okay. Do regulated, cannot be more regulated than stress testing model, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do stress testing model with machine learning, okay? And run it. And okay, well, but we need the real data. Well, real data, okay? We use Freddie Mac that you can download. Huge loan per loan, right? For long history. Take that. Let's build it. So they build it, okay? Build it with it's a sophisticated representation of coefficient varying, the equivalent of coefficient varying model in statistics. But run it. So you run it, get good result, okay? Incredible, good result. Prediction and everything looks good. Okay. Now let's look at the effect plot, okay? The effect plot is just completely bonker. It doesn't make sense, okay? So when you have variable that negatively correlated, yeah?
Yep.
One can go the other, one go to the other, wrong direction, you still have the same prediction. Model doesn't make sense, okay? So you put that one in real world, it will be the output you do stress testing a completely bonker, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things that people need to think about, the conceptual solvers, check it, enforce, but then say, okay, now you see it, that's just the wrong direction. Now you impose monotonicity into the right direction. So impose it monotonicity in the right direction, the model performs the same, it's as good as, okay?
Yeah.
See, you cannot do machine learning just for the sake of machine learning. You really do the control conceptual soundness, test for robustness, test how this model will be resilient under all of this. So that's what I'm trying to do. And now with the teaching, since you asked the teaching all the math, all the principle behind it, and we give the tool as well, code that people can experience themselves. So that's what I do with UNC Charlotte.
That is amazing. I've been complaining for years. I talk to these grad programs. I'm like, you guys should have a two-part class. Like you take one where half the class develops a model and then half where they validate, and then you'd switch.
Yes.
I learned my career, to your point, model validation was like the best experience I've ever had. I developed models for a year, and then I went into model validation, and then it's, you know, going into the details of like a test and why it's valid or why it doesn't work. And then having to prove to the development team, like, hey, this one small issue turns into a bigger issue. And then going through that academic process of discovery was such a benefit for me. So I can only imagine the value added that you are adding to these universities by having this course.
It's cool. I'm at the stage in my life, right? Want to really help and help young people to start their career. When I started my career, in no such thing. So fine, you know, in all those things. So the experience that we had on the MRM, when people talk about responsible AI, people try to talk all this thing. Don't go too far and looking at the thing. You want to do responsible AI, do MRM. Yeah, as I do model risk manager. That's your basic stuff, you know. It's not something in the sky, and I have a problem with responsible AI field because a lot of people imagining, theoreticize. This is what responsible AI means. You don't have to. Trying to invent something, learn from the industry that has been doing for 12 years.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's from build it from that, and then look at things that's not there and add and improve it, you know. But if you cannot do MRM, I think the whole responsible AI is complete BS.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been struggling lately trying to convince people, which I guess more is a question for you, of how do you get people to buy in to risk management, and how do you get people to buy into MRM? I feel like on the banks, it might be a little easier because, you can just say, well, the regulators over there are complaining. We got to do this. But to your point, like the banking community, I always thought was, everyone tells you it's behind, tech is cutting edge. And then I started interviewing at all these tech firms and I'm like, they're so far behind on the validation process. And the banks had such a robust framework. And even in my current role, I never realized what risk culture was. Like the banks always talk about, oh, we have risk culture. And I'm like, these executives, they're just waving their hands and making stuff up. But when you move into fintech, you start to realize like that there's something about just working there, like either in validation, development, even just adjacent to these development teams, you start to kind of absorb the culture. But how did you go about it? I mean, you were there from the beginning of when this really started to take off with the banks.
But before I answer that question, it's just simple thinking about what has happened in some example, right? Why we do MRM.
Yeah.
A few years ago during COVID time, remember the fiasco with Zillow?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So we just in our area, and that's caused by their model and their model as well as inappropriate use of model, right? So it just said, don't get Zillow at that time, and people don't get Zillow. And then, and then during very recently when we have liquidity crisis and all of those things, right? And don't get Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
Because of your liquidity model, right? Don't get Silicon Valley. So that's very, very simple thing to look at that. Even a few months back, remember when Google released their multimodal things? I would say, and then all the controversy because the founding father are black and the women are Asian and things like that. And people say, well, it's people, I think, in my opinion, giving too much credit to Google. They think that the woke ideology make that thing. No. It's more fundamental MRM. I'll say this one. So don't get Google. Yeah, don't get Google. And then you have Air Canada a few months back, right, on the chatbot problem. Don't get Air Canada. Okay. So all those things that very, very, very simple thing. Google cares. People think, oh, it's a woke ideology. No. I think it's more simpler than that. So yeah, one evening, and I'll say this one. One evening, I have a meeting in New York. So I went to New York, I arrived early, and I stay in Times Square at that time, and I have nothing to do. I say, this evening, let me go to, let's watch a Broadway show. Let's see what happened. Oh, Hamilton. I haven't watched Hamilton yet. This sounds wonderful. So I watched Hamilton. If you watch Hamilton, okay, Hamilton is black. George Washington is black. Thomas Jefferson is black. And then Hamilton's wife, wonderful singer, is Chinese. Okay. So if you think about founding father, about picture and all of those things, what's in the internet? Of course it will be Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very fundamental problem with conceptual soundness on your data quality and suitability. That's the first principle on the conceptual soundness, your data quality and data suitability, which people ignore it today in the LLM world. Completely ignore it. Okay. So it's not the woke ideology. It's just simple, basic MRM, data quality and suitability. So that's the thing. It's like, don't get Google.
Yeah.
If you are interested, well, if you do something that really making a background slide for your PowerPoint, yeah, you can use model that untested, because if it's wrong, you catch it and no harm. Okay. Yeah. But if you want to make it for financial decision, you want to make it to recommend something to your customer, right? You want to make decision about treatment, health of person or person. It's a really important thing. You make sure that you test it, you know where the model weak, so that you have a human override and all of those things. So that is really basic MRM. So
yeah,
don't get into trouble with all of this. And becoming a lot more explosive today because people deploying Gen AI because they want to be cool. They deploy Gen AI without testing. I can ask people, okay, how did you test your Gen AI? We can talk about this in more detail, in my view, how to test Gen AI and how can you not test it, Gen AI. But
how are you guys testing this? This is something I'm trying to run in front of. I feel like I'm the bad guy at work all the time. It's like we have tech teams running with LLMs and people building models, and it's not a bank. And so I'm like, trying to get in front of this team and trying to explain it to another team. How are you guys going about handling that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, ask what can go wrong with the model. Have you think about what can go wrong and what the implication of that?
Okay.
If it's wrong, what is the implication for the company, right? What is the implication at the very least? You may not violate law, but what is the implication to your reputation and credibility, right?
Yeah.
If this is in some area, probably you don't care. Let's say if I do recommender system, maybe somebody may argue, and then probably people just won't click it. Okay, won't click. You miss opportunity of customer retention probably because you want to get people engaged because your recommender system very good on the or something. So you miss that, but not very harmful, right?
Yeah.
But I think you need to think about that. For example, if you want to, I think you want to do chatbot and you get chatbot that externally interact with customer, what can go wrong? Do you think you're willing to do that, even if you do it internally? So a lot of people today, banks, they don't do chatbot externally. They do chatbot, but they dumb it down. Okay, so they don't do free for all LLM. So dumb it down, restrict it, and we can talk about that how we do it. Even internal chatbot. Okay, internal chatbot retrieving things. If you're a big company, yeah, you have a lot of people. Not everybody agree with what you do or whatever. How about lawsuit for your own employee, right?
Yeah.
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 How about the lawsuit from your own employee? Are you ready to do that? If it's external, it will be lawsuit from your customer.
Yeah.
The bigger you are, the more target you are for the all this litigation lawyer, basically. If you are a small company, okay, I don't really care. It'll be okay, but sooner or later it's going to bite you.
Yeah,
So it's things like that. I've been to court many times because of the model issue.
Yeah.
If you have done that one, experienced it, I don't think you want to do it.
No, it scares me because I think often without risk culture around it, companies don't think that far out. Like even like you're mentioning, customer facing is always terrifying to me. And everyone goes, oh, but we narrowed the data down. We only trained it on our internal documents. And I'm like, but what if it gives them the wrong answer? And then they make a financial decision off that answer. And then it goes wrong. And then they sue you. And to your point, now you're going to say, well, who told them that answer? And it goes, well, a chatbot did. You're still going to be held liable in court.
Your management team, the senior management team will be called in court and will be I've done that one many times. It's not pleasant. So especially if you financial advice, if you look at wealth asset management, wealth investment management business, what is the biggest cost that they have? One of them, legal costs. So you get in the mail all the time, right? Hey, this is a class action lawsuit, and hey, you got this small check because of happen all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the result of that, right? So it's very, very simple. It will show up in court, and your management, whatever senior people will be called in court, subjected to 7 hours by the other side of the prosecutor. It won't be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So how do you let's circle back. How have you built kind of that risk culture and that validation piece? I mean, I've always envied your team and the work you've done because like to your point, you're like super high up, you're the head of model risk management, and then I'm like, you're publishing papers, you're doing analytical work, your team is generating actually good and interesting research, but at the same time, you're also managing the full process of the daily requirements of model validation, risk management framework, putting the pieces together. Now that I'm running head of the quant team, the company I'm at, it's a lot of meetings and working with the executives and the other departments. I mean, how do you kind of bring that culture together and kind of help them understand?
The senior people, well, I think it's in phases, right? When I arrived at the beginning at Wells Fargo, the place is in shambles in terms of model risk management. So I have to build it. I have to do nitty-gritty, very hands-on in everything we do. But as the program more mature, you have to step back. You have to hire people that you trust, you empower them to run the business. It's no longer you to run the business. So you have to be thinking about thought leadership, thinking about how you build culture, how you build environment that is very, very enjoyable for your team instead of running business, right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. So I am fortunate enough. I have really a wonderful direct report and team, which over the year we build, of course, hiring the right people and recruit the right people. And sometimes I have to make decision, let people go and replace it with people some that more capable. But you start thinking about, okay, well, at the end of the day, if you want to get the model right from the beginning, it
Mhm.
has to be in the mind of the model owner. It has to be the mind of model developer. So when I was in the Wells Fargo and I left, the second line don't have to manage model risk anymore. The first line, the head of model risk, the head of model development, they are so into it, right? And and the attitude is so important. And if you look at the team that I had before, the first line and second line is so together in lockstep. It doesn't mean we're not challenging each other. We challenge each other very fiercely, but people know because of the culture that we build when you challenge, because the people on the other side really care about you and want to protect you. And this is really also from the mindset of model validation. What do you do? Well, you are at the beginning, you are a parents to preteen or teenager.
Yeah.
You want to keep them safe. You sometimes you have to be hard on them, but because you love them, because you want to protect them. The attitude, it need to be like that. The attitude is not gotcha,
Yeah.
right? The attitude is I want to protect them because I love them, right? And that show, if the mindset is like that, it shows in day to day how you interact, and the other side because it trusts you more as well because they feel safe when dealing with you. Sometimes it's unpleasant,
Yeah.
but they know because these people are really care about my well-being, right?
Okay.
So that kind of thing, the softer side like that, Dimitri, is so important, and that need to come from the most senior people.
Mhm.
Then propagate, and you have to repeat it again and again and show it, and demonstrate it that you do that day in and day out too,
Yeah.
right? So you walk the talk. So the integrity is so important, but mindset. When I talk about culture, start with mindset, and you communicate, you build trust in all of those things, and of course, capability is so important. If and you can do this, you can protect, you can provide this if you are very capable, if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you worry a lot of different things. Then because you worry about things that you don't know, then you become a blocker,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So then you become blocker. Oh no, we're not going to do this. No, we're not going to do this. No, we're not going to do this. Because unknown, a lot of those, the worry of the unknown. This is why the second line, the model validation, you have to have the best talent. You
Mhm.
have the best talent, and then the mindset, so that okay, we know what we're talking about. This is part of it. If you can see, when I was in my previous employer, research is done in second line. So
Mhm.
they are way ahead of everybody. So the knowledge is there. So they're not scared. They know all of this. Then they say, okay, then you move it. Okay, we move to this direction because we know we can handle it. We can manage it safely.
Okay.
So that's but mindset from the senior leader, and then how you communicate, and then build that trust through the working day-to-day work that propagate all the way to everybody that has to be on the trenches dealing this day in and day out.
Okay. And how did you guys, who owned the models when you were there? Was it the business units that owned it and then the development teams that work with them in tandem to kind of
Yeah,
bring those to fruition?
yeah. Model owner has to be the business decision. It has to be the decision maker using the model as decision maker. Model developer cannot be the model owner.
Right.
because they are not the decision maker when model are being used. So it need to be the business because
Okay.
they need to own the risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need to. So
It's hard for me because, as a developer, you can kind of see the problem, but I don't really know the problem. Like I'm not in the weeds every day
yeah,
making
yeah,
all the decisions. There's always a
right.
nuanced detail you're just not going to catch, whereas
Yes.
the actual model owner will know those details.
So this is the thing that I've been preaching this for a long time, and this is part of it in my previous employer is big in the model summary, model definition, and all those things. Basically, the model owner have to be able to state what are the harm if the model is wrong, right? What are the harm when the model is wrong? You have to be able to state it, and then you have to say, how are we going to measure it from the business? How are we going to measure it? And what is your risk tolerance?
Yeah.
So that need to come from the business, right? So, okay, what is the risk tolerance? For example, very simple thing. I am going to use LLM for complaint routing. Okay, route the complaint to the right people so that it will be resolved. By the way, for banks, as you know, from the minute from somebody complain to the complaint resolution, bank has 10 days.
Yep.
The only industry that has regulation. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
have problem with your phone provider, your Verizon, your AT&T, you can complain and they can work at their leisure to solve it. Okay. If
Yes.
you have problem with your credit card, 10 days.
Yeah.
From the minute you complain, the minute resolution, 10 days. If not, all those things will go to report to regulator, right? Then you get slapped, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, complaint routing. Then you say, okay, we do complaint routing. And if it's wrongly routed, then you have to rework again, you lose the time, right? So you have to be able to say, how much wrong can you accept,
Yeah.
right? So you have to start with that, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able, okay, what can go wrong here? Well, can go wrong and route it wrongly. We lose time on all of this. Okay, state it and how much. And then we're talking about AML, which is interesting, okay, anti-money laundering. As BSA officer of their false negative, fail to detect, okay, what rate that you're willing to say this is terrorist financing and I fail to detect it. What percentage? They have to put it on the ground,
Yeah.
put the line, draw the line on the ground. Then we can say, okay, now we're talking because we're talking about risk appetite, which is not model risk, it's your risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all it's model risk, that's not AML risk. No, it's AML risk because fail to prevent terrorist financing, right? That's
Yeah.
your risk.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and then say it.
I'm struggling with this, explaining this internally of trying to explain to them. I can't be, the fraud expert, and I can't be the credit pricing expert, and I'm the customer service expert and the funding expert. And so now I'm like running around with the chicken with my head cut off trying to cover these. And I don't know how to convey this, but it's to your point, right? There's a lot of detail, there's a lot of issues, and where's the there's a strategy piece that each business owns in that process. Like the model's just a tool. Like I'm just building you a tool and then you're going to use the tool safely.
This is the thing. If you cannot state your acceptance criteria, and we're going to invest your money to build this model, and later on it will fail to meet your criteria and you get disappointed, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of things people today try to use language model for process automation. Are you sure you want to do that? If you require 100% correctness and predictable outcome, this is not the tool because
Yeah.
this is a stochastic tool. It will make mistake.
Yeah.
And do you know how much mistake this is going to make? What is your tolerance? If you don't have tolerance, forget about doing POC or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to state for your business purpose. What is your acceptance criteria? Then okay, then we're going to look at this. Let's look at it if we can build something that will achieve that, so that when I build it, the capability is this, is within your acceptance criteria, you should not get disappointed
Yeah.
because that's what you asked,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, and model validation will say, okay, if that's what you accepted, I am going to test it, that is the case, that you can achieve that, and I'm going to identify in what condition that is not going to achieve your goal. That's the idea, right? On
Yeah.
the model testing, in what situation that your goal, your risk tolerance will not get accepted, right? So I think it's very, very basic thing. We need to talk about the business requirement, and then from the business requirement, what is your risk tolerance? And then we build model according to your risk tolerance, and we're going to validate it according to your risk tolerance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. And again, one of those risk topics that I don't think anyone thinks about outside of banking, but you hear risk appetite requirements, definitions of what's a model, what's a tool.
Business objective. If you don't achieve your business objective, right?
Yeah.
That's what the harm, right? And is that acceptable? And how much acceptable? If it's acceptable, we can use any model all day long, even very simplistic model, even non-model. I'm just using to predict. I'm just calculating based on average of the last 3 months. If they achieve your goal, you're good with that. That's it for your tool.
Yeah.
Right?
So what are you working on now at H2O AI? I know this is machine learning related. I've had an interaction with them at Capital One. They had a big conference kind of show here at the Dallas campus, and I was really lucky. I got to go and attend it and do some hands-on coding with it. What are you working on with them though?
It's a lot of really outstanding engineer. Their culture is culture of building, and their focus has been on model building, right? They are known for their AutoML, their Travelers AI, and now they work on large language model. But what I'm bringing is really, hey, do you know how to test this thing? Do you know how to validate this thing? As a responsible developer, you should do this thing. So if you look at PyML, right, that's for building transparency model, interpretable model, and test model with all reliability, robustness, and all of those. So with H2O is I'm building the LLM version, okay, for PyML-like, yeah, to be able to do testing, because testing LLM is very expensive. Not only expensive because hey, I have to have test cases that you have, but also how to evaluate it, also manual, okay, and also it's very tricky in term, even just the metrics is very tricky. So and because of that, a lot of people deploying LLM without any testing. Okay, the first question is, can you test LLM? Well, my answer will be no, you cannot test LLM. Okay, but you can test LLM for specific use if you bound it. Okay, if you bound the application, then I can test it within this boundary. If you have an open-ended Q&A, like OpenAI style, you cannot validate, you cannot test it. Because how are you going to test it? Because there's no boundary.
Yeah, there's too many cases.
So in real world, in real industry, in real world, the application is not like that. Yeah, we have something that really assistance and things at low risk, but on the high risk application, it's bounded. We have to bound it. This is for application for such and such. For example, I am going to build assistance for a banking center to answer customer question about specific product. Bound it, right? You're going to build a complaint summarizer from conversation and then summarize the complaint. So you bound it. You know what's the case. So when you bound it, it's this is what people do with RAG. I look at RAG differently than other people. People look at RAG to reduce hallucination and all this thing. But what RAG does from model risk point of view, you bound it. Now you're going to answer thing within the domain of these documents only, right? You bound it. Now, when you bound it like that, now we can validate it because I am going to bound it for this validation. Now, the first question is, well, generating test cases is and ground truth is manual process is very expensive. As a result of that, people probably test it with very, very limited cases, right? Not comprehensive. So I'm working with H2O to do an automatic test generation so that we can generate test cases that will have statistical coverage. Okay?
Okay.
That's okay. This is the space. We're going to sample it. We're going to do it in this, and tests will be automatically generated. And then we're going to evaluate it. When we're going to evaluate in regulated industry, in particular, your evaluation, if you do evaluation manually, it's very expensive. You cannot do too many of them, right? So it has to be somewhat automatic evaluation, computer-based evaluation as a first start. And if you do that, what kind of metrics you want to use? Well, it has to be metrics that is reliable and at least transparent. So a lot of things in LLM today, people use it LLM as judge or LLM as jury. Use other LLM to decide. A regulator will ask very simple question: have you validated your judge?
Yeah.
Okay, have you validated your evaluator? The answer will be no. It's then, conversation stop. It's no go.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. Okay, people loosely, even a lot of things use LLM to do this. The most popular one, Regas. Okay, use LLM part of that. It's good for entertainment for low risk application. You go to a regulated industry, you're going to get killed. It's a no-go. So those are the things that I built to, okay, we're going to have evaluation system that is very transparent, that we can see it and we can test it, okay? So that, but yet still computer evaluation, then we can do, okay, now I'm going to sample it for human evaluation, small sample, so that we can calculate the false discovery rate of computer evaluation, right?
Yeah.
And you can put confidence. You can calibrate the computer evaluation to human evaluation. So this whole suite for model validation, particularly for high-risk application in regulated industry, is the things that I'm helping H2O to build. So it will be something that will be okay. I can use it in front of regulator and I can defend it and I can feel safe as well and have confidence that I test my model with confidence. So through automatic testing, but also with human sampling to identify to calculate false discovery rate and confidence of your automated testing as a whole. So so the tool will be released in end of September, early October, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's quick.
So it will be exciting. Hopefully, will help a lot of banks. Hopefully we can make it at that time the open access like MyML style, so a lot of people can use it.
Okay.
So that's what I do. Okay, so it's landing the thinking, the thought in model validation, right?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just
Few
model
test
testing.
case.
Okay. so the regulated industry grade model validation.
Yeah.
But we can do it in very, very cost-effective way. So that's what we are thinking, so that everybody can do it, so that no excuse of not doing model testing anymore.
Okay. Can you in H2O AI, can you do the full process? Like build a layer on top of the LLM for your use case, and go through your testing and then deploy from that framework?
Correct. So H2O has a LLM development tool that they call it H2O GPT-E. So it will be fully integrated with H2O GPT-E, but also you can use it for any RAG system or summarizer system that you build with any tool you build yourself with Hugging Face, or even you want to do RAG system using Microsoft Copilot. Yes, it has a API that will be automated testing and talking to those models. So that's why need engineer to do that, not only data scientists, right? So
Yes.
that's what we work with H2O to have the combining their engineering prowess with the data science mindset, particularly model validation that I have.
Okay. That's very cool. I know there's been I've seen a lot of buzz around LLMs, but I've never, to your point, I haven't seen anybody actually do a full framework of how you would validate it, how you do
Exactly.
the process.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's interesting, Dimitri, because this, right? In LLM is mostly zero shot, right? Mostly, I'm not going to retrain my model if I can. I'm just going to do fine tuning my prompt, right?
Yeah.
So in LLM, model development mostly are technology exercise and not data science exercise.
Yep.
But model validation and testing is full-blown data science exercise. Okay, so that's what we do. Talking about explainability, talking about robustness, talking about all the sample generation and all this full-blown data science. Building application, it's more technology exercise. Testing it is data science exercise. Building it is becoming easier and easier. Testing it is very difficult. So that's what I'm attacking. And the thing is, let's face it, in regulated industry, people do model validation because they have to, because regulator told them to, right? And it's very expensive endeavor, by the way, you know.
Mhm.
But this is what I'm trying to attack. How can we make the discipline of model validation in a very affordable way? Through automated testing, through standardized testing. So that's the tool that really I'm very, very keen about, so that not only regulated industry doing this, but we have tools that anybody can afford to do model validation.
Okay. So one of the reasons I left the banking sector was I felt that the validation standards for MRM actually were coming down. So I was talking to friends across the industry, my past big bank employer. It was turning into, to your point, right? How do we make this more cost efficient? And instead of this solution of let's keep the rigor but help automate, it turned into like let's just not validate and do more
Right.
governance.
That's the problem. Okay, and this is also the problem with the model validation. Yeah, this is things that I want to change. Actually, I put this thread on my with my team when in my farewell speech. Right, part of that. Okay, let's face it. Model validation is very artisan.
Mm-hmm.
Model per model, basically you give everybody hammer and chisel. You give everybody hammer and chisel in the hand of very crafty people.
Mm-hmm.
You craft something beautiful. Hammer and chisel. You cannot do that, right? If
Yeah.
you cannot do that, if you want to make it at scale, because becoming more and more model, turning very fast, if you cannot do that, then your problem will be becoming like what you just said, because otherwise you will be a blocker,
Mm-hmm.
right? The answer should be not like that. The answer should be, okay, you need to change it from artisan work into industrial grade. And we can do it. We can do it, so that it will not be, at the end of the day, like I said, okay, we're doing model hacking. We want to show how the model will be wrong, will be weak in certain area. I don't care about the model, okay? I'm going to test it. So that testing, that very laborious,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those things can be done if we step back. And particularly in machine learning, that's why we do PyML. You do robustness tests, you do reliability tests, you do resilience tests, and you identify model weakness. That's all you need. What else? And those, you can put it as a pipeline from beginning to end. Then from that output, you can evaluate conceptual soundness. Yes, it
Yeah.
still have the people to do that judgment, but it's no longer artisan work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's, unless we do something like that, then your standard of MRM will be degrading because you cannot afford it and you got the pressure of cost cutting. That's exactly what I am trying to do here by providing building tool, so that we are not going to sacrifice the quality. In fact, the quality will be better, but you can do it in affordable ways so that human will do what human do best and machine will do what machine do best.
Yeah.
Don't let human do what machine can do, right? So I think that thought that need to be done. And I felt that in the last 11 years that I had, okay, this area need to be shaken up. Yeah, need to be shaken up. So otherwise, you're going to compromise your quality. It will bite you. Yeah. How to do it? Yes, you can do it. And so part of it, that's what I am very keen about, is building this tool, is to make to amplify your capability, that let machine do what machine best and let human do what human do best.
Did you ever see kind of an issue with education and training? So when I left, the hardest part of leaving was working with Ching Zhao. I missed working with him so much, but we were so fine-tuned that it was like everything churned so fast and everything was so easy. And it was like we were doing, you know, extraordinary amounts. I mean, we had a team of 4 people validating all of an auto division, every model, servicing, pricing, everything was 4 people. And it was, I missed having that camaraderie. But to your point, it was that friendliness. I remember him telling me, "You're completely wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about." You know, he's like, "You're a smart kid." But it was kind of to your point, it was that culture, but also it was the education, the training piece. And when I've been at other firms, I've seen it's hard to get people that understand the math, that have the passion for it. But I think when you get all the pieces set together, you can really bring down the cost, because you have people that are so in tune with the process. And to your point, they know the bullet points to hit. They're not wasting time on discovery mode of, you know, trying to find a nuanced issue that makes no difference. But how did you go about getting the right talent? Did you do any internal training? How did you kind of keep everybody kind of flowing in that process?
It's an interesting one. Training, of course, is very important, but not only training on the technical side, nitty gritty, but training about mindset and paradigm. Yeah, when you do model validation, what is it? What you're doing and how you approach it in terms of mindset and paradigm and things, because the rest will be followed. The rest are detailed technical, which machine can do well. So the training on that piece is very, very important. Okay. And this is why I say model validation is not just a bunch of statistical tests, right? It's completely irrelevant, a bunch of statistical tests. But that's hard, yeah, because we have people that has been in this field forever. To change them is very, very, very difficult. So that's one, okay? Changing the paradigm, the mindset is very, very difficult. So I spend a lot of time giving a talk and things. My style is I don't manage. If you talk to people that in my group, I'm a terrible manager. But because I try to convince people, selling idea and convince people instead of managing, right? But training, influencing people, thinking about the mindset is so important. Well, I'm not only talking about high level mindset. I'm also coding. You know, I can show you. If you don't believe me, let me show you with my code. You know, so that's the type of thing that I do. But that is very, very important on the mindset, particularly people that has been this forever. Now the problem is the younger generation, people that fresh, yeah, they're just coming in, they're looking at document validation of the past. Oh, they do this. Now I need to add more. Okay. That's not the point. Yeah, that's not the point. So teaching them the right way is very, very important as well. So I spend a lot of time, including when the fresh graduate. This is part of it. Why what I do and I enjoy the most is really interaction with people, including very fresh graduate talent. I invested a lot of time and sometimes this is my frustration, Dimitri. So I'm going to blow some steam here. Okay.
Go
So I
ahead.
hope you bear with me a little bit. When I started my career, yeah, when I started my career, nobody helping me. Think about when you started your career, the EVP of company talking to you and helping you. If that happened to me, oh, I am going to jump all over the hoop. I am going to kill myself. I'm going to do extra mile. I'm going to take advantage of this. Don't
Yeah.
you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Not in today's environment.
No.
Yeah, that's what disappoint me a lot. I am making myself available. Yeah.
Yeah.
And working with you, do some technical stuff. Let's do research together and all those things. If that opportunity presented to me when I was young, I will jump over the hoop. I will not sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to do it. Yeah. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
my frustration today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share that. Remember my first job. It was like I came in, I sat down, I'm at the desk, and I'm like, what do I do? There's no training around, there's no support. And then, your direct manager gives you kind of a little bit of direction here and a little there, but it never seemed like your point, like it was an important task. Like there was somebody at the top that was willing to invest the time and the effort to kind of
Yeah.
get the team going. And then I always felt like there was a big disconnect in most places I've been, from senior management to those actually doing the individual contributor work. There always seemed like this gap. Like they had this goal, and then your manager has a different goal, but it never seemed like it coincided very well.
6-layer,
Yeah.
in Big Bang, so many layers. I don't make difference. I have people. I spend time. Whoever want to do this, okay? But it cannot be me who take initiative. I make myself available. If you do that, you have to kill yourself and do extra mile to take advantage of this. Because if you do your career, help your career. So for people out there, the younger talent, try to reach out if you have it, please. And people like available, all these people available for you, please. Take that and run with it. Really push yourself. Well,
Yeah.
so I don't know, Dimitri. Some people that work with me, it's very, very gratifying. I really enjoy it, but most I get, honestly, majority I get disappointed because why me do have to make an effort,
Yeah.
so
It's
but
talent's been hard. I've really struggled hiring. And even like to your point, meeting just people in the industry that are like you, that are really excited. Like I start mentioning an idea or a problem or an issue, and there's been a few people that have really stood out. Like they're so excited to help. It doesn't even matter if it's relevant. They're just really excited. And then to your point, there's a lot of people, and it's like even employees, I'm like, trying to push, like, there's a cool idea here. Like, why don't you guys take this and run with it? But I don't know how you get to that. Even in the interviewing process, I try to gauge that, but it's a very challenging kind of a skill set to kind of weed out and there's good talent.
so I think the technical skill is given, right? But that is necessary condition, not sufficient condition, right?
Yeah.
When I recruit, it's really attitude, right? Looking for attitude.
Yeah.
Okay. How is the attitude is more important than anything else, in my opinion. A lot of smart people out there. What will differentiate you will be your attitude, right? And
Definitely.
how can you show that? So that's what I do. I will look at the energy of the person and the attitude. So you sprinkle here and there with question that supposedly I want to see how they get excited, how they try to excite you. When you do interview, it's not so much about telling yourself. Yeah, it's about how can you excite the person who interview you, right?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
at the end of the day is that, okay?
Yeah.
How can you get the other side excited? Meaning that you have to understand these people and you have to look at understand what get them excited. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to get them excited. So same thing, I will look at it of these people, the initiative, how can they try to excite me because I'm looking at their attitude, right? So it's very, very important because technical skill, yeah, if you graduate from, you have your PhD from reputable school, and we look at it, okay, you are very well trained on that. Now the rest is really attitude and ability to think.
Yeah, definitely. So one last question here for the interview. What resources would you recommend to anyone listening to learn more about explainability within the ML space, validation, risk management?
I want to say this one on the explainability. For tabular data, yeah, for tabular data, it's no excuse on using model that not explainable. Because we can make sophisticated machine learning model, be it deep neural networks or gradient boosting machine, to be interpretable. And you can look at that example in PyML, right? So yes, you can. And I'm going to release additional tool later the year to make really, really sophisticated mixture of expert of XGBoost that's really inherently interpretable. Okay.
Okay.
So tabular data is no excuse of not having interpretable model, in my view. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you chose to do black box and do lime and sharp, I would call it intellectual laziness. Okay. I would call it, I'll be very frank, I will call it intellectual laziness for tabular data if you do that. Because it's no excuse if you know how to do it, just learn and have a lot of paper out there, and I give tool and example in PyML. Okay, for non-tabular data, language model and vision, that's a different story because the feature itself is not interpretable. Okay, so that is then you say, okay, how can we try to explain? So today the state is still post hoc explainability that you need to learn, try to explain the input and output. So that's very simple principle on the explainability relationship between an input and output that you need to be able to explain. Relationship between input that you can explain, you can plot. Then you have to deal with low dimensionality and cardinality. So a few principles that you can learn and all of those things. So it's some information out there. I published a few paper in my archive, so people can search under my name in archive. So we can look into that. So I think that's how people should start. Particularly if you're looking at it, this is the thing. The noise today from LLM is deafening, but at the end of the day, LLM is helping to do on the process. Decision making is done by tabular data.
Yeah.
By
Yes.
statistical model, by what we call it today, traditional machine learning, predictive model, right? I call predictive model statistics and machine learning. Okay, majority will be there. The decision is done. Decision is made using number.
Yep.
And not by LLM. LLM is terrible with number. Okay, so LLM help with the process, automate the process. Now people doing as an agent to automate things, but decisions are made by number, by tabular data, by predictive machine learning or predictive model in general, right?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That is a very, very important piece. But a lot of information out there, but I would start, looking at a few things out there. A friend of mine, Patrick Hall, wrote Machine Learning for High Risk Application. That's a good book, a good book for people who just started. But I also put the educational tool like PyML that's out there that people can learn and they can try it themselves. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the channel. I've learned a lot. It's always nice to reminisce too on people with similar ideas and backgrounds in risk management.
Very good. And keep up the good work. So I enjoy what you do, So I probably a quiet admirer and quiet of follower of yours. Okay, but you done a fantastic job.
Thank you.